I have some questions for atheists. And I may say, well, who are you? In my opening talk, I discussed my disqualifications. I don't have a university degree. I don't have background in science. I do have a lifelong commitment to and deep study of Vedic theism and philosophy, which I have imbibed by the mercy of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who is the foremost emissary of Vedic theism in the 20th century to the world. Anyway, whether you think I'm qualified or not, I have a few questions. Why are atheists so passionate to disprove theism? Why are you so intent on promoting atheism? Why does it matter whatever people believe? Each life is a blip in time. Our life and our death in the whole vast span of time are of no significance. We're tiny little beings in a tiny little universe. So why do you even bother about theism, atheism, rationality, and so on? Is it rational to do so? Why are you so concerned about the human condition? If you think that we are just chemicals which have come about due to some materialistic, naturalistic forces, then what does it matter whether you believe this or you believe that? We're just a bunch of chemicals. Well, you may say, well, suffering is real. There are problems in the world. I remember seeing a video of Christopher Hitchens, the great anti-theist Christopher Hitchens, in which he was asked by a member of his audience, well, why do you bother propagating all this stuff? And Mr. Hitchens replied, I can't remember exactly, but it's something to the effect that, well, look at what's going on, Islamic terrorism, this, that. We've got to do something. We've got to do something to counteract all of this. Again, so what? If we're just a bunch of chemicals, then so what? You may say, well, suffering is real, pain is real, we should try to counteract it. But still, it's just chemical interactions. If you burn a strip of magnesium, you'll see it flares up, produces magnesium oxide. If you throw some alkali solution into an acid solution, there'll be a big effervescence. But there's no pain. Pain is real, okay. But where does the pain come from? If you want to discuss about how to mitigate pain, then you come to the same starting point as in the Vedanta tradition, which begins with the analysis that life in this world is full of suffering. Dukhalayama shashvatam in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna states, the nature of this world is full of suffering and everything is temporary. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna gives some very real types of suffering, birth, death, old age, and disease. We have to go through life after life, or even if you don't believe it's life after life, you can't deny there's suffering in this world. So it may be very noble to want to counteract the suffering. And if the anti-theists see religious belief as a major cause of suffering in the world, a major source of iniquity. So, okay, good. We don't accept that the religion is all bad or that needs to be snuffed out, but we do accept that pain, suffering is a problem. But to our dear atheist friends, we can ask you to first consider who or what experiences pain. Chemicals don't. Who are you? Are you just chemicals? Really? Alistair McGrath, Cambridge scholar, in his book Dawkins' God, he wrote that Augustine of Hippo wrote of the eros of the mind, referring to a deep longing within the human mind to make sense of things, a passion for understanding and knowledge. So definitely we see scientifically minded people have a passion for understanding and knowledge. But where does that passion come from? From chemicals? Atheists are very strong on logic, rationality, reason. Where does that come from? Chemicals? Where does desire come from? Where does this sense of good and bad come from? Chemicals don't have it. There are extremely powerful urges that we all experience that cannot be explained in terms of molecular interactions. For instance, sex desire cannot be generated among chemicals. Proponents of biological evolution, which means vast majority of people who call themselves scientifically minded in the present world, they say that the sexual desire has arisen due to the living being's desire to perpetuate the species. But again, chemicals do not have desires. How can you mix chemicals and generate within them desires? What is good and bad for matter? What impels chemicals at any stage of its existence? What impels chemical? Whether you say, yeah, chemicals don't, but when it's all arranged in a biological format, then desire comes. But where, why, how, at what point in chemical interaction arises the desire to survive, to love? What does a scientist do when he goes home, sees his wife, and tells her that hormones in my brain make me feel that I love you, but really what I'm talking to, you're just a talking lump of meat, a carcass. Why do scientists, when presented with good evidence, strong evidence, that according to their own theories, the conditions necessary for life could not have arisen by undirected physical forces? Why do scientists ignore this, deny it, or invent highly speculative theories such as multiverse theories, or that life arrived on our planet from elsewhere in the universe? Can you prove that life comes from chemicals? You say that life comes from chemicals, so why don't all you big scientists with all your taxpayer-funded grants take some chemicals and make some life? If you can't make a hippopotamus, then at least make a blade of grass or a mosquito or an ant. You can make huge jetliners and sophisticated fighter planes meant for killing people. But we see in nature dozens of little flies swarming around a light, and they never crash into each other. When gardening, I've been doing some gardening recently, we sometimes, by unearthing the land, upset some ants. And you see hundreds of them, all of a sudden, they're running around in a small place, but they don't collide. For all your intelligence and study and research over generations, you can't make planes or cars that don't crash. But you deny the necessity of an expert designer for all that you call nature. Why? Here's a big question for you. Reincarnation. We should examine this and then go on to the topic of God, not God. Why ignore it when there's so much good anecdotal evidence? Why is this all buried? It's such a big thing. Reincarnation. From all over the world, very good anecdotal evidence. Go and look on YouTube and see. There's so many anecdotes. It's been systematically studied by Dr. Ian Stevenson, the University of Virginia. Ignored. Why ignore it? When it has such deep ramifications for the whole worldview of the Western world, of the scientific outlook, even for that matter for the Christian and Islamic outlook. Why ignore it? It's a major point. Missed, dismissed, both theists in the Western world and atheists. The topic of reincarnation puts the whole theism versus atheism debate into a different perspective, different dimension. It solves the theodicy problem, the problem of evil. It's commonly stated by atheists, and theists often say that it's the hardest. Theistic philosophers often say that it's the most difficult point to counteract. The argument goes like this. So, well, God is claimed to be all-loving, all-powerful, and all-knowing. Yet we see there is evil. So how can we believe in the existence of God? If God is all good, all-knowing, and all-powerful, and can do anything he likes, there's no limits to his ability, then why doesn't he stop evil in the world? Seems to be a good argument against God. I was taught in the Catholic primary school I went to that all evil exists in the world because long ago our first ancestor by the name of Adam ate an apple. Very unconvincing. Have to agree with the atheists on that one. But actually, Christians and Muslims will agree with the first two claims, that God is all good, all-knowing, all-powerful, and then again, he has no limits to his ability, but they call into question the third one, that a good being will always eliminate the evil. The Western or Abrahamic theists will qualify that question by saying that a good being will always eliminate all the evil that it can unless it has good reason to allow that evil. The crux of this theistic response is to show that indeed God is justified in permitting evil. Now this whole question of why does God allow evil is very much part of the, again, Christian, Islamic, Abrahamic, Judaic mindset, that there is evil. And even atheists in the Western world, they talk about evil. Again, how can there be good and evil if it's all just chemicals? But in the Vedanta, yoga, or you can say in broad terms, Indian philosophical traditions, this idea of evil as a kind of force in the world, personified as Satan, it's not there. There's ignorance, illusion, Maya, but the idea of a force of evil or God permitting evil, it's not there because there's no sense of evil. It's a different way of looking. And again, come to this point of reincarnation. Why don't you look at this? Because the understanding is, as stated in Bhagavad Gita by Lord Krishna, Purusha sukha dukhanam bhuktritve heturuchyate, that the good and bad that we meet in this world is due to our own selves. We are the cause of our own suffering and distress. Now you could say God could remove that, but the understanding is that God, the Supreme Being, gives us minute independence, which we can use or misuse. So bad things are allowed to happen. That is, God's giving us the opportunity to do so. And He also comes, it's a big topic, I'm just summarizing it here. He comes into this world and gives us knowledge, gives us the opportunity to rectify birth after birth after birth. So reincarnation is the answer to this. Actually, the idea of a God who creates living beings and throws them into hell forever, as propounded in Christianity and Islam, that sounds pretty evil in itself. Whereas reincarnation gives the understanding that God gives us chance after chance after chance after chance. So why don't you look into this? Why dismiss it? Another question that I'm asking, this is more out of curiosity, I'm not asking polemically. I'd be grateful if someone could explain this to me, is what is the meaning of E equals mc squared, the world's most famous equation? Now, I'm not expecting someone to try to explain to me all the physics and the deep understanding behind it all and all the mathematical equations behind it all, which is no doubt beyond my intellectual pay grade. But I don't understand how mass can be multiplied by the speed of light, and especially the speed of light squared. What does it mean, the speed of light squared? I can understand if you have 2 oranges here, another 2 oranges, another 2 oranges. Okay. 3 groups, each having 2 oranges, make 6 oranges. 3 times 2 equals 6. Okay, easy to understand. We can multiply, by using numbers, we can multiply and understand how many things are going to be there. If you give me 2 oranges, then again 2 oranges, and then again 2 oranges, you will have given me 6 oranges. Because each orange is a discrete object, but mass is not, and the speed of light is not. So how can you multiply mass by the speed of light? Also, light is a type of energy, so how can it be used to define energy? E equals mc squared. E, energy, is defined by the speed of light, but light is also an energy. It becomes a tautology. Another consideration is that E equals mc squared. Well, that's just one equation, which is said to define the universe. It sure looks like someone put it all together. How could it just be? I'm not questioning the validity of E equals mc squared. Obviously it works. On the basis of that, research was made for nuclear fission, nuclear power. Interestingly, sadly, the first usage of nuclear power was for making the nuclear bombs that destroyed hundreds of thousands of lives in Japan. Anyway, that's aside the point of this discussion. Yeah, I can understand it works, and okay, energy represented by a number is conceived of in terms of mass, represented in terms of a number, and that's variable also, although the speed of light is supposed to be invariable. But it's difficult for me to understand this example. You can multiply oranges, you can multiply apples. But what we're saying is the number or the energy that is represented by a certain number, the mass is represented by a certain number. But it's not the same as multiplying solid, discrete objects. Energy, mass, they're abstract concepts. And there are similar equations also. Force equals mass times acceleration. Now you can say, okay, we have this unit of energy and this unit of mass, but it's an imposition in our mind that there is this unit. Actually, there is no unit, but just for the sake of our convenience for examining it, again, it's not something discrete like an orange. And the units are arbitrary, just like in measuring temperature. We have Celsius or we have Fahrenheit. We could be any scale made up. So this is more of this kind of thing of philosophy of science, philosophy of mathematics.